This is the ASRock X570S PG Riptide, a mid-range motherboard with... Actually, hold on, X570S? Well, that sounds new to me. I wonder what could be so different. Ah! There's no fan on the chipset heatsink. I guess the S must stand for silent. Well, pretty much. The long and short of this is that this is a brand new motherboard or motherboard design that has come out this late in 2021 and right under the looming shadow of Zen 4. But why has this come out, and is it a board that you should pick up yourself? Well, let's take a look at it and answer those questions. Now, if you were hoping for a fully new chipset, or even one that's just been updated with maybe some new features and I/O, this isn't that. The X570 chipset that's on this board is, for all intents and purposes, the same as the one you get on a non-S brand board. The S is a signifier that the motherboard vendors are putting on, not AMD themselves. This isn't some special version or specifically a low power version either. My best guess as to what's happening here is that the X570 chipset is nearing on, in fact, over 2 years old at this point, and so the manufacturing process and the microcode updates that keep things, well, up to date and fresh, those have been maturing over the last 2 years, and so it's quite probable that the X570 chipset that AMD is manufacturing today might be a bit more, let's say, thermally efficient than the one that they produced back in 2019, hence why you now no longer need a fan on the chipset heatsink. Connectivity, both through the chipset and direct to the CPU, hasn't really changed though. You still have a PCI Gen 4x4 connection from the CPU to the chipset, which does mean that thanks to this being an X570 board, you do actually have two Gen 4 M.2 SSD slots. One down at the bottom that connects through the chipset, and one up at the top which has an M.2 armor, a heatsink on top of it, that connects directly to the CPU. You also have one reinforced X16 Gen 4 slot up at the top, or just below that top M.2 slot, that also connects directly to the CPU. And you do technically have two other X16 sized ports or slots on the board, but both of them are connected just at X4 electrically. You do also have another M.2 slot, but this one is for a Wi-Fi module that unfortunately is sold separately. Interestingly, the placement for that Wi-Fi M.2 slots is actually on the left-hand side of your PCIe lanes. You normally see just a bit of shrouding there for most boards, but instead ASRock is using that space, and actually it's quite cool to see. Just below that M.2 slot is the Realtek ALC 897 codec, which is definitely on the more aging and sort of mid-tier platform, I guess. I'd prefer to see an ALC 1220 codec here instead, but for the price range that this board is at, I can't be too mad. As for the rear I/O, that hasn't changed too much either. You get a BIOS flashback button and a bracket for a Wi-Fi module if you want to add one in yourself later, as well as an HDMI port if you're using any of the APUs that AMD now sells. You also get a PS2 port, which is a combo mouse and keyboard, if that's relevant to you these days. 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1, which is the 5 gigabit per second connection ports. You get 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2, which is the 10 gig. One of those is Type A and one of them is Type C, and you also get 2 USB 2 ports as well. You do also get 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, which is quite nice to see on a board of this price range. That's provided by a killer E3100G NIC, which is actually on the back of the board. You should be able to see it here. Nice etched logo. And you get 7.1 audio or SPDIF, depending on how you want to, well, output your audio. Sadly, you don't get an included or a pre-attached rear I/O shield. It's back to the standard ones, which, considering that even their Steel Legend boards, like the B550 Steel Legend that I use quite a lot, has that installed, it's kind of strange to not see it here. For a mid-range board, the VRMs that ASRock put on this are definitely not bad. You have 10 total phases with 50 amp drivers each, and a rather nice aluminium heatsink. Admittedly, it only covers the lower 8 phases, the top 2 are left in open air. It uses a UP9505S controller, which is a up to 4+2 phase PWM controller, although I suspect that what ASRock are using is 4+1 and then doubling all of those channels. They're using SIC 645 drivers, which are 50 amp drivers for each of those phases, and 60 amp premium quality chokes as they list. And the overall, well, output of all of that is that this is honestly still overbuilt for pretty much any AMD chip. In fact, any AMD chip you can put in this, the maximum socket power that it will draw is around 142 watts at stock. And even if you want to push it to more like 200, that's still child's play compared to what the Team Blues chips draw, at least for now. ASRock's BIOS is still definitely on the more, I suppose, basic side. It does have some nice red accents thanks to this being a PG or Phantom gaming board, but pretty much everything is still better navigated with your keyboard or your arrow keys, enter and escape, rather than trying to use your mouse for, well, pretty much anything. You can, but they haven't built much functionality to make use of it, so it's still easy enough. You have plenty of options. The first page is the sort of standard information page. The second is the overclocking settings, where you have basically every possible option you can imagine, especially memory timings and memory configuration, all the way down to sub and tertiary timings and everything you could possibly imagine. The next page over is all of your different settings, where you can find things like the resizable bar support, which is actually enabled by default, at least for my board, which is great to see, and even SR-IOV support for virtualization, which is quite surprising to see on this level or this class of board. You even have a page full of every single firmware version number that the BIOS is using, even down to what version of the firmware for your chipset it's using. And even more interestingly, the chipset that this lists, the name that it lists there, was X570/590. So X590 confirmed. And you've also got the option to use the included Thunderbolt 4 header, which is sandwiched between one of the X1 and X16 slots, and enable that support in the BIOS. That'll be useful when you can go and buy a Thunderbolt 4/USB 4 card, plug it in and plug in that header. Otherwise, that's a nice setting to have available, but it's not overly useful for anyone who buys this board right now. And of course, you have the full suite of Precision Boost overdrive settings, including setting all of the advanced, well, options, including PPT, EDC, TDC, and all of that good stuff. And I did have a little play with it with the 5600X I was using, with the same settings I was using for the last time I was playing with Precision Boost Overdrive on that chip, and it worked pretty much as expected. VRMs did not get hot at all. Again, pretty much as expected. The other confusing thing about ASRock's AMD boards is their stock power limits. AMD spec says that for 65-watt TDP chips, the total socket power limit should be 88 watts. And for the 125-watt TDP chips, that should be 142. But in my testing with the 5600X, its package power limit was set to 76 watts instead. And that doesn't seem right because, well, as I found out in my recent Ryzen RAM testing video, because it was set to 76 watts by default, and I was running 3600 MHz RAM, which the I/O die requires about 17 watts to run that, that was eating into the core die's power budget essentially, and hurting performance. Now, this is really easy to fix. You just head to the Precision Boost Overdrive settings and set the PPT to 88 watts, but you shouldn't have to. All of this is somewhat missing the bigger picture question though, which is, why would you buy one of these boards right now? In fact, why did ASRock even bother making a brand new board this late into 2021? Well, I can tell you that the impending, flurry of new Zen 4 based chips is at best probably 9 months away, and at worst more like 12. And that's a lot of time for people to go and build new systems, and so it kind of makes sense that these new boards should be readily available. Plus, if the manufacturing tolerances have gotten better such that there's less heat output from the chipset, I see no reason why these refreshed boards where we get to get rid of those pesky chipset heatsink fans aren't a good thing. So, should you buy this X570S PG Riptide? Well, it's a decent board. The VRMs are definitely fine for pretty much any chip you can throw at it, and it does have some nice extra features like Thunderbolt 4, SR-IOV support in the BIOS is quite cool to see, and of course a wide complement of overclocking settings from memory to the Precision Boost Overdrive, so it's definitely not bad. In terms of pricing, at least on Newegg, it's currently listed for $180 or so. I would quote a UK price, but unfortunately it's not available here just yet, although I will leave a link in the description that's an Amazon affiliate link that will take you to your local Amazon store where you can see pricing when and where you watch this, because hey, it may be available by the time you watch this video and click on the link. But the point is, if you were to compare that to the B550 Steel Legend board that I use on a pretty regular basis and still happily recommend, that's more like $150. So I generally recommend B550 over X570 anyway, unless you really need two PCIe Gen 4 SSDs running at full speed, in which case, why? But again, if that is your use case, or if you were going to buy one of these anyway and you just want to know that it's not a bad shout, you can rest easy because it's a decent board. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen a Wi-Fi module included and the Realtek ALC 1220 codec instead of the 897, but again, for this sort of price point and for an X570 board, I can live with those compromises. I should also mention that it is quite a nice option going for this refreshed brand new board, because you can guarantee that it supports the Ryzen 5000 series CPUs out of the box. Whereas an older version or a non-refreshed board, you can't always guarantee that you won't need to send it back to be updated, or use an older chip to update the BIOS to then support your new Ryzen 5000 chip. So that is one nice benefit of having one of these refreshed boards. So you've heard my thoughts. I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think of the X570S, I suppose, refresh? What do you think of the PG Riptide board? Is it one you pick up yourself, or would you go with B550 instead, or are you just not upgrading right now? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Like I mentioned, I will leave a link to the board in the description down below. Like I said, it's an Amazon affiliate link that will take you to your local Amazon store. We can see pricing when and where you watch this. Otherwise, that is pretty much it for this video. If you want to stay up to date on more of these videos on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis, do hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. If you want to support the channel, you can do that with a new YouTube join button where you get access to our Money Men Discord chat, sponsor-free videos, and some cool emojis to use in the comments and in our live stream chat as well. Or if you'd prefer to support on Patreon instead, there's a link in the description for that. There's also merch, hoodies, and t-shirts like this one. This is my At The Wheel car channel, which you should go subscribe to when that pops up on the end cards. Or there's a load of tech designs like an RTX 2060 I designed in Blender myself, and a load of other links for places like Overclock UK if you're buying from there, VPN options, Humble Bundle, Streamlabs OBS, and a whole load of other stuff. So do feel free to check it out. There will be plenty of other videos on the end card you can check out too. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next video.